But thanks everyone for joining us today. My name is Justin Chugg, and I'm with Ensable. And today we're going to be talking specifically about how to get referral partners. But really what these trainings are about is to help you lower your customer acquisition costs. And one of the ways that we can do that is through referral partners. And this is actually connected to our previous discussions about getting more sales appointments. But today's discussion specifically talks about who to target. And we'll talk about the details here about that in just a second. So we all know that referral partners are a great asset to have. A lot of times we don't necessarily understand why, all the mechanics behind it, but ultimately what this is doing is it's giving us unusual leverage. Because in the traditional customer acquisition model, we're going to be acquiring customers on a one-to-one ratio, which is good, but it still requires a pretty significant customer acquisition cost. But in the referral relationship world, we're able to have a relationship multiplier where we can maintain fewer relationships at a lower cost of acquisition in terms of referral partners, and they then focus on acquiring and maintaining those customer relationships. There's another reason why referral relationships are so much more effective. If we look at the distribution of ads and products, and we look at probably the golden standard within the marketplace, which is Google Ads, which does a pretty good job at targeting individuals, it's still not nearly as effective as word of mouth. And there's really two reasons for that. One is obviously it creates that instant credibility when someone refers you to something. But at the end of the day, it's still more effective in terms of distributing information. So if I come across something really interesting like an aquaponics solution, something that's not very common, I would then take that to specific individuals who are familiar with that. And so this is essentially what this word of mouth does for us. It's a much more effective means of distributing this information. Now, when we talk about referral relationships, one of the most common phrases that comes up is a two-way street. And I think this is good for most referral relationships, but it's not great. The best referral relationships are really going to be a one-way street that converges. And what I mean by that, it needs to be what in science they would say obligate symbiotic relationships, where the two parties depend on each other and not just complement each other. So if you're going to invest time in a referral relationship, it needs to be with someone that actually depends on you and you depend on them. A good example of that would be someone that's selling Sugar CRM, for instance, a CRM sales professional. The reason being is if you're selling an SD-WAN solution, that cloud application needs to be optimized. Or if you're selling IT security, there needs to be some security parameters around that to protect that information. Or if you're selling email, like Office 365, or a phone system, these applications need to be able to talk to each other. And they're really incomplete, and so is the outcome, unless those components are working side by side. And so a true symbiotic relationship with a referral partner would require that both of you work together, and that's why I see this as a one-way street rather than a two-way street. You're working towards the same goal together. And those are the types of referral relationships that you want to invest in. A few good examples would be commercial loan officers. So obviously the loan officer wants his money back eventually. He wants these companies to succeed if he's loaning them money. And technology is going to play such an important role in the success of these companies. And obviously the commercial loan officer is not going to be the best person to do that, and neither is the person on the other side of the table. But that's really where you would be able to come in. And so this is a good example of a relationship that you can develop with commercial loan officers to help leverage technology to help their clients succeed. MSPs, direct reps. Think about how scary it would be for a direct rep to have 2 or 3 locations that they couldn't service, for instance, and have to have their customers contact their competitors to fulfill the needs of those locations. What if you were able to step in and create a safe haven where they wouldn't have to reach out to 2 to 3 other vendors to supply that information, and not have to worry about losing those customers. So again, direct reps are a great source of referral relationships, and we're actually going to do specific trainings about a lot of these different types of reps and talk about specific examples, but I just wanted to kind of get the wheels turning within your minds. Furniture companies, obviously, they're going to be dealing with companies that are moving into office space or expanding, or specific changes are taking place. Obviously, venture capitalists are going to be leveraging a lot of technology to accomplish the goals that they have in mind for their clients. Cabling companies, business consultants. Business consultants, I think, is a great market that's really untapped for a lot of us in this space, because their job is to help these companies grow. And nothing's going to do that better than technology. But they're by no means are they capable of having the conversations that you and I would have with these customers as a business consultant. So they really need to bring you to that negotiation table, to that consulting, to those consulting meetings to help them in understanding what to do. Architects are obviously dealing with new buildings and new construction. CRM providers, we talked about them earlier, construction companies, commercial real estate agents, interior design companies, moving companies, painters, carpet companies, property managers, software vendors. So there's lots of different areas here where we can look at ways to help each other and work with each other and really go to market. So let's move on real quickly, and let's talk about why these companies refer us business. And the ultimate motivator, and not necessarily the only motivator, but the underlying factor that drives the behavior of referrals is the people who refer the business are trying to create a self-image. So if you think about it, most people would rather look smarter rather than dumb, richer rather than poor. So just like the clothes we wear or the cars that we drive, what we talk about or what we share helps others change the way they see us. And so knowing about interesting things or helping people helps us develop what we call social capital. So when someone refers someone to another business, really what they're trying to do is they're trying to reinforce a self-image of themselves, that they know things, that they're helpful, that they're a good person. And this is this image that they're trying to create. The problem is, a lot of times we don't reach the level of that helps people refer. So let me just explain. So if we're not an expert within a specific market, we really don't reach past a threshold that allows people to refer us business. We're really mediocre. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it so that there's enough incentive, social capital, for people to refer business to us. And the only way we can do that is if we specialize in something. But there's a second reason why we specialize, outside of all the other reasons. But if we expect our referral partners to refer us business, we have to also expect them to remember us. But in order to remember us, we either have to be there all the time and constantly nag and remind them, or we can get into their minds and create what we call triggers. Triggers are basically, if you think about it, neurons that fire together, wire together. So we're trying to create keywords or phrases that when they hear those phrases, they think of us. So there's a good example of this. When KitKat had their sales slumping for a little while, they came up with an idea to create a trigger. So in the campaign, they basically said, if you're drinking coffee, you need to take a break, and you need to get a KitKat. And this raised their sales from $300 million to $500 million, because every time someone thought of the word coffee, KitKat came to mind, and they were able to create that referral. And that's essentially what we're trying to do here, but it needs to be specific enough. And that's one of the challenges that we face, is a lot of times when we ask customers, what types of businesses do you market to? And a lot of times they'll say, well, I work with multi-site customers or companies with a large number of employees, which is good, but those descriptions don't have a strong enough trigger to create the referrals that we're looking for. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get something like Office 365, or it would be Sugar CRM, or something along, or it could be hospitality industry. those are strong enough so that when someone mentions those, it creates this trigger so that people can refer us, if that makes sense. And that's why becoming an expert in something narrows our focus, which creates a strong enough trigger for people to actually remember us when those key phrases come out. Because if it's too general, it doesn't create the memory and the reminder of to the referral partner to bring us business. There's a great book called Contagious by Jonah Berger. This is something you probably want to pick up if you want to dive deeper into some of these concepts, but it'll probably give you a lot more information about developing the triggers, developing the social engineering that you need in order to create these referral opportunities. Now, our next step is we want to, obviously we always want to acquire more referral partners, but we also want to help these referral relationships flourish. And as we talked about in the very beginning, this discussion today is connected to the previous discussions that we had in terms of generating more sales appointments. And so let me explain what this means. So we're going to go to LinkedIn, and we're going to click on the white box in the top left-hand corner. It's just that blank box for search. And there's going to be a pop-down. It's going to say People. We're then in the top right-hand corner, we're going to click on All Filters. And this is going to take us to an advanced search field. And hopefully by this point we've connected with our referral partners, because what we're going to do next is we're going to use them as a filter within the search. And there's a box that says Connections Of. This is where we're going to type the name of our referral partner. And what this is going to do is it's going to show us all of their LinkedIn connections, especially if we add the second degree LinkedIn search. We can also layer on other filters like title, school, company, geography, industry, just like we would with a normal search. And so all of the results that we now see here are the customers or relationships of our referral partners. Now what's great about this is now our prospecting list. Now we're not going to prospect directly to these customers, but we're going to leverage the relationships of our referral partners to get into these accounts. And so at this point, we're going to copy all of the company names within these companies, and we're going to use that to track these companies. Now, there's another method which may be more effective, but you don't necessarily have to use this one. But if you have somebody within your office or maybe a spouse who hasn't joined LinkedIn yet, you can take advantage of that by creating a new LinkedIn account and having that account connect all of the referral partners exclusively. Then when you perform a second-degree search, you can see comprehensively all of the relationships across all of your LinkedIn connections at a second-degree level. All right? So basically, it's the same thing as what we did before, where we're searching for the connections of an individual, but rather than having to do it one by one, with a new account, you would be able to do that for all of your referral relationships. Now, once we have the company names of the connections of our referral partners, we're going to start tracking these companies, because what we want to do is we want to help initiate the opportunities with these customers through our referral partners, and this helps us be part of the conversation early on. So if you're not an Ensable member, you can simply use something like Google Alerts to keep track of these companies and get news and, job postings and different points of information that'll help you kind of know what's happening inside of these companies to essentially create excuses to have conversations with these companies with your referral partners. If you are an Ensable member, you can always use the Referral Report, which gives you a daily summary of activity among these accounts, like customer acquisitions or new applications or things of that nature. So what you're going to do with either the Google Alert information or with the Pareto Report, you can use this to say, hey, referral partner, I noticed that one of your LinkedIn connections is moving, or they just got venture capital. Is this something that we can work together on? And because you're initiating those conversations, they're going to bring you along with them. Also, likewise, if you're having customer conversations, you want to bring them into those same conversations, because remember, this is a symbiotic relationship where you depend on each other and you complement each other perfectly. And so it would make sense to bring them into discussions when there's a relevant conversation for them to be involved in. But this helps solidify some of those relationships. But I also recommend always doing marketing campaigns together, not only because it lowers your customer acquisition costs by splitting the cost of the marketing campaign, but also it helps solidify those relationships and helps you go to market together. So this is a great way to create a stronger bond with your referral companies, and oftentimes there's a lot of marketing funds to go around, depending on the marketing company that you're working with, to partner together. Also, I'd recommend running an upsell report for any companies that you're talking with for your referral partners. This is probably some pretty valuable information that you can do, that you can provide for your referral partners and add value to the overall discussion. You can also use the related competitors within these reports to help you expand the dialogue. So maybe you have that one-off conversation with a referral partner. You'd like to continue that, and this would create another opportunity for you to say, we're talking to XYZ company, why don't we go and talk to all of their competitors as well and tell them what we're doing? This may be another great opportunity for you to help expand the initial discussion that you have with a customer, with your referral partners, and help nurture those relationships further. Also, if within the upsell reports, you'll notice that there's collaboration opportunities. And by the way, the upsell reports are part of our free program. You don't have to pay for this. You can get a few of these every month. But the collaboration opportunities allows you to basically join forces with other Ensable members who are using the same platform. So if somebody else is tracking the same company and you would like to join forces with them and work with them on the opportunity, Ensable will reach out to them on your behalf and let them know that you would be interested in partnering with them. You might find some good partners through this method as well. Now, next up, we need to talk about incentives, because this is going to be a really important component in the equation that we're creating to make these successful referral relationships. And what I think what we need to focus on is that money isn't necessarily the most important incentive. And oftentimes, a lot of our customer acquisition costs will be higher if we don't know how to use this wisely. So I'd like to recommend a book. It's called Giftology by John Ruhlin. This is the best incentive book out there, but it'll really give you a much more creative and effective way to spend your money in terms of incentives. And because the problem is when you incentivize your referral partners strictly through monetary means, it's easily replaced and it's much more expensive. And so it's a good idea to use this as a means to really to grow that and to really invest in your partners much more effectively. An example that I'd like to throw out there is what I call Plan B. So most of our referral partners are in a sales capacity, which means that there's a lot of turnover and there's a lot of risk. And so the Plan B is essentially creating a backup plan in case something happens to their job. And so what you do is, rather than paying them a monthly commission, which a lot of times is not possible because their current employer may not allow that, or there may be some conflict of interest, you essentially create a bank account for them and say, look, if anything happens to you at your job, I've created this bank account where money is coming in every month from the residuals or from whatever compensation plan that you have in place for them. And if anything happens, you can come work for me. And I have this bank account set up for you to do so. So essentially you're creating a salary for this individual beforehand and also creating a unique incentive for them that thinks outside of the box, something that if you think about it, the most important thing for them isn't necessarily their customers, but keeping their job or at least having some type of an income. Now, when talking to business owners, typically we're going to try to start at the top when we're working with referral partners, trying to talk to the owners and the people in charge. The best way to address and have a conversation with them is to talk about their exit strategy. What I mean by their exit strategy, if you want to catch their attention, talk to them about what is their plans for selling the company. And then in that discussion, you can talk about the 10x multiplier rule, which is essentially if they sell their company and there's residuals involved, which most of the products and services that we sell have a residual nature to them, the revenue from those residuals has a 10x multiplier in terms of the evaluation of that company. So this is something that really helps create the right mindset and incentive for the business owners of these companies to say, you know what, this is probably something we need to think about. And so the 10x multiplier allows us to help them visualize the value of this. Along the same lines, really the ultimate strategic relationship with referral partners is when you are hired by these companies. This doesn't necessarily mean that you leave the company that you work for or you give up on your own business. This just means that you come on board as kind of like a strategic partner or contractor, where you still maintain your day job, but you can now carry their letterhead, their business cards, have an email address for them, and you can work with them at a strategic level that you normally wouldn't work with them outside of their company. And so you basically become an employee of the company. And you can even create a resume for the types of referral partners that you're trying to target and apply for this job. Doesn't mean that they're going to pay you directly, but you'll be able to be compensated through the referrals that they send to you to have greater access to their customer base, which is ultimately what you're trying to create here outside of just their LinkedIn connections. Lastly, I'd like to recommend another book. It's called 93 Extraordinary Referral Systems by Jay Abraham. It's a little bit dated, but I think it has a lot of valuable information. Jay Abraham went around the country. He's a sales consultant and met with hundreds of different companies, probably thousands. And what he did is he basically recorded every single idea that he came across from different business owners about how they created different referral systems. And so you can actually hear the voice of different business owners and what they're doing and what's working and kind of go through that. So that might give you some additional ideas in working with referral partners. So to summarize for today's discussion, first we need to identify referral relationships that are complementary, one-way streets that converge rather than two-way streets, relationships that depend on each other for a single outcome. Next, we need to track their customers. If we want to make these relationships work, we need to get involved in the conversations by bringing the conversations and the opportunities to the referral partners. So we can do that through LinkedIn for the most part and use either Ensable or Google Alerts to basically generate the intel that we need to kind of create the excuses for those conversations. Next, we need to make sure that these relationships are strategic. We need to market together. We need to go to acquire customers together. We need to have conversations together. We need to try to work for the company, explain to them the 10X strategy, create a plan B for them. Think about the different incentives that make that possible. And that's really what makes these referral relationships